maybe I'm open to doing something new or doing a different show. And I was offered to direct, and I read episode 7. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do this episode. There are themes of the subconscious that come up in this episode, and for me, that's something in my life that I've been working on a lot, and I really understand that language. And I feel like Severance has been a show that's been developing camera language for subconscious feelings. You're talking about like invisible camera work and things, and just things that are subtle and then sometimes big, but just things that are metaphysically difficult to express, or something I really, really like to be challenged. No one knew what we were doing. Like Severance is this like wild thing that developed its own self, and I got to try so many things, and I really got to push the craft.
Hey, Jessica, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you.
I'm Anthony.
Hi.
I love that we're both in Canada dealing with this cold right now, which is, we're in it together.
There it is. There's a flag.
Show off the flag. Show off the flag. We love it. Jessica, we're so grateful for your time with us today on the Movie Podcast. We cannot tell you how much we absolutely adore Severance, and we're just so happy that it's back in the world.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
And we've waited such a long time for Severance to return, and season 1 was phenomenal, and to be back in this world and live the Severance season 2.
I always think of us working on the show as like being in Innies and Outies, and I feel like when we go into this show, we become like our Innies because we're just in this world. Even for us to just get to the set, that classic MDR set, we have to walk a couple minutes down these hallways because like the set is surrounded by hallways. But no, it was interesting. It was an interesting journey. I definitely have to kind of like get ready for it when I go, because I don't live in New York where we shoot. I live in Canada. So when I get ready for Severance, it's a whole thing. And I'm like, okay, we're moving to the US again to work on this show.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned those hallways, because the opening to this season of Severance, I think, was one of the coolest things we've ever seen on TV. And, Ben Stiller and Adam Scott mentioned that it took like 5 months almost to shoot that. Other than all the running, what went into making a sequence like that?
So much planning and so much scheduling. I think probably the hardest thing about the sequence was scheduling it. Early on, we knew that this was the intention, and we knew we were going to have to tackle it somehow. We didn't know how big and how laborious it was going to be, because first you just have, you talk through it and you're like, okay, well, this is an idea. We know we want to do something really elaborate and really special, and also where a camera moves at really high speeds in hallways. Not that easy. So it was broken down. There was a previs that was done originally, and then from that we were working with overheads to kind of understand, because the previs shows you what it'll look like on camera, like what the frame is, how the actor will move in the frame, how the camera's going to move. But there's the whole thing of where are we actually physically shooting this? Where can we shoot it? And I can really go down like a rabbit hole of explaining how the shot was made. But to keep it short, it's just breaking it down into steps, this previs, then overheads to kind of choose which stages and where things are going to be shot. Then you kind of feed that information to the AD department who schedule it. And we would kind of pick at it. We would have, when we say 5 months, it's not like we were continuously shooting this every day with Adam. We were not torturing him to that extent. But we would have like a scheduled moment where a specific part of the hallways, because we have hallways on almost all of our stages, they wrap around all the sets so that they're connected. So, you can come out of Cobell's office and you'll have a series of hallways that you can connect to. And then like that hallway actually also goes to the Outie visitation room, and it also goes to this other set, which it's kind of fun in a way. But let's say when a stage is free and we know we're not shooting on it and we need a specific hallway configuration, they'll build that and we can fit it into a schedule. But like the next day, we might need the hallways to change because we're doing another thing where we need the crossroad hallways. Like we have all these names for all the different hallways. It's definitely a maze, but once you work on the show and for years, you kind of really know the landscape of Lumen. Like we know that there's an L-shaped hallway when you come out of this office, and this one has the dead end. It's just there's a maze.
And it's so cool when you're watching the show and you really just feel like you are lost in that world. And when you especially with that opening, you really get a sense of just like how big this place is, and it just feels endless, and you're just going deeper and deeper. And it's great that Adam got to channel his inner Tom Cruise with all that running as well too. So yeah, it's great to see that.
It was fun. It was a challenge, but it was fun.
Now, talking about camera movement, we got to talk about the dolly zoom. It is so instrumental to understanding the Innie and Outie worlds of Severance. How do camera movements like that help with storytelling?
Well, I can speak a little bit like how it came about, because, early on, and for season one, Ben and I were talking about just the language of the show. How are we gonna differentiate these worlds, the Innie world, the Outie world, and also we had all these like in-camera style moments that we wanted to try and achieve, and everything was the first three episodes were kind of being developed simultaneously in terms of prepping them, which are in season one episodes where we really define like the camera language. And for this particular one, we were having conversations about our Outie world, which is more long lens aesthetic, and then the Innie world, which is more wide angle, a little bit weirder, Freelander-esque kind of photography. And it was, okay, how do we bring this together in a way? And then we came up with the idea of, well, let's just do a good old Zolly, which, came about, like a bunch of other filmmakers have used it. In Jaws, it was used in Vertigo, and it's kind of an iconic thing. But we wanted to make it, kind of not the most important thing about the shot, also just enhance the performance of the actor going through this procedure. So the way to put those together was basically using a zoom lens and doing the Zolly. You start long lens, the camera's far away, you're pushing in on the actor, and you're keeping the same height and size of the face basically from a vertical line in the frame, so that what happens is your face changes perspective. So, well, optically the perspective is changing, so your face changes, and you're moving in from a longer lens to a wider lens, but keeping the head at the same height. And that creates that weird distortion effect that people feel. And it's the reverse language when we go out. And we did get, confused at some times. I think it was in season 2 where one of the Zollys was shot in the wrong direction and we had to reshoot it. That did happen once.
It happens.
Every time we do it, we have to be like, oh, we're going in or out, Innie to Outie. And now we all know, but like there was a little hiccup.
That's so funny, but it's so cool how these camera movements like really help inform the storytelling. And so much of the show is we'll get information without either like exposition given to us or dialogue. And I think especially for those positions of power, and we're thinking of like Heliar and Irving, and like in episode 4, and how their scenes are shot together. And it's like, it's so cool how little camera movements or the positionings of them kind of help us think about like, oh, there's suspicions here, or there's a feeling here of something's not right. And it's so cool how just a camera movement can make us feel that way without anyone ever saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's so damn cool how you guys are able to pull that off. Have you ever given any thought about, the Innie and Outie world of what's your, let's say this is your Outie, what's your Innie doing? Like, have you ever thought about kind of that separation for yourself when you're working on the show?
No, I feel like when I'm working on this show, I have no Outie. So I just, it's like RIP to my Outie when I start a television show. I feel like we feel like that in general, though, when we're in the film industry. It's just when you go onto a project that's this big, you kind of know that like you're going to have a little work-life balance moment that's a little difficult. I feel for her, but I take a vacation after the show.
Yeah, that's good. You deserve it. And, you've worked with Ben Stiller before, and we just love to know about like working with Ben, working with Dan on the series. Ben, you worked on Escape at Dannemora together. Now you're stepping into the director's chair this season on the show. So what's your Severance journey been like to get to this moment and now, be a director on episode 7, which we can't talk about plot point wise, but we will just say it's one of our favorite of the entire series. Incredible episode. What was that feeling like for you getting into the director's chair?
A big journey, definitely a big journey. I wasn't expecting it or wanting it consciously. Anyways, I have always, the journey of Ben and I working together has been so amazing, and I've gotten to do some of my best work ever, and I feel super privileged to have been able to work with the actors and the technicians and the artists that I've gotten to work with. A lot of that came because I got to work with him, and he's the one who found me in a way and like pulled me into this world. So that's been amazing because it's been a lot of learning, and to be able to always be trying new things and to be developing things, that are high end and have quality to them is such a luxury, and I'm so grateful for it. When it came to making season 2, I think I was hesitant of working on the same show again, because I'm always trying to look, like for the same reason I didn't really want it's out there that I didn't really want to work on the first season because it was an office show, and I'm like, I don't really want to do an office show. I want to be able to, do different lighting looks or try different things, not be shooting white walls with overhead lighting, every like DP's worst nightmare. But then no one knew what we were doing. Like Severance is this like wild thing that developed its own self, and I got to try so many things, and I really got to push the craft. But when it came along to doing season two, I was like, oh well, I don't know, maybe I'm open to doing something new or doing a different show. And I was offered to direct. First, kind of like I don't want to direct. And then I read the plot for all the episodes, and I read episode 7. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do this episode. And I know we can't really talk about it, but there are themes of the subconscious that come up in this episode. And for me, that's something in my life that I've been working on a lot. And I really understand that language. And I feel like Severance has been a show that's been developing camera language for subconscious feelings. You're talking about like invisible camera work and things, and just things that are subtle and then sometimes big, but just things that are metaphysically difficult to express or something I really, really like to be challenged with. So 7 made a lot of sense for that. And basically I said, okay, I'll do this episode. And a year later, after agreeing to direct, I'm like, finally directing this episode, and freaking out because I thought it was very terrifying for me. I was completely out of my comfort zone, but I found a lot of happiness in doing it. And I really wanted to wake up every morning and come to set and do this. And I realized that it's what I want to focus on now. So for me, it's been a crazy journey. But yeah, it's kind of, I feel like I'm starting a new chapter, and I feel really blessed that I got to do it with a team of people that knew me and a show that I knew. So it put me, there was a reason why it was Severance. It's because it was almost like brought to me on a silver platter. Here are actors here is the like a team that here is the showrunner and creator and people that like you and respect you, and I felt very taken care of. And I think that allowed me to open up and do it.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. It's so cool that you were able to coming from a stance first of I don't want to do this, and now you have this new just passion unlocked inside of you.
Kind of like your Innie came out. Yeah. It's like an Innie within an Innie.
I feel like the Innies are like the truest version of us. I feel like it's that part of you. The Innies are allowed this rebirth where they're allowed to be their childlike self again, and those impulses and their authentic version of themselves is kind of in that Innie. But they haven't been suppressed by the outside world.
Yeah, so true.
And shooting on film and using Panavision lenses, I'm guessing those were the things that excited you about doing your own episode. And the highlight of this episode is just the natural lighting. It felt magical.
We tried I can't really talk about this though. If I say anything, it's it's alluding to what happens in the episode. But there are parts of it where we wanted a different feeling. Where we were really looking for a different identity and a sense of nostalgia, and that's why we went down used this medium and went down that route. Shooting with Panavision is always a luxury. We've been working with them since season 1, and since Dan and Maura, Ben and I have been working with them. That glass is truly special, but this season we did upgrade to the Venice 2, which was a fun plus. I think for those who are really into geeking out on camera stuff, if you compare the image in general of season 1 and season 2, you'll notice there's a certain richness and a certain depth in the color space, and also in the depth of field that's slightly different than season 1.
It's really cool to see the evolution, and then especially how those moments are used between more of a digital shot and then more of that warm analog feeling of the film. It's really cool. So I'm really excited for everyone to see that. I'm curious, going back to you in the director's chair, when you're talking with Ben about what that episode was going to be, was there any, I guess, help or anything that he gave you, knowledge that you're I'm going to remember that, being directing on that episode? Was there something that stuck with you?
Yeah, I think the way that he helped me with actors, I think was really monumental in giving me confidence and listening to my intuition and just letting me breathe sometimes. He was present, but also very graceful, and would, know when I needed help and when I didn't need help. And was there to reassure me when I wasn't sure about something. I really felt supported, honestly. And there was a lot of trust there. I know the show very well. And he knows what I'm capable of doing in terms of capturing scenes. But I think just the reminder that I was able to do this, and you know, that he was watching over, to me was all I really needed to trust myself. And in that way, that was amazing, you know, and just coming in the right time when I needed like a reminder of something
Mm-hmm.
was super useful.
Is there any ever is there a Ben Stiller film that he's either directed or acted in that you were a fan of coming into this? I know there's a lot that he's been part of, but is there one that
I'm gonna say Cable Guy for me.
Cable Guy, you know, Meet the Parents, Tropic Thunder, like there's a lot that he's just he's always so good.
I think Reality Bites probably for me. I mean, Zoolander was epic. Like when it came out, like it was a big one for my generation. So it's iconic. You know, I love iconic things. What I love about Ben is that too, is that how iconic he is. You know, even when you listen to Severance and you listen to the music, every choice is so iconic. I just like always use that word, but it's just so him. I love that about him, that he can kind of do so many different things, and it's just like stamped it's going in the history books, you know, like he just knows how to make that kind of work.
Yeah, definitely. Looking back at your time on Severance, is there a shot or sequence you're most proud of?
Sorry, I'm like thinking a shot, like
time.
one shot. I don't know. And I'm sure, you know what, I'm sure it exists. I'm sure there is like one shot that I'm like, I die for it. There's all these images are like flipping through my brain right now, but there's too many. There's not one. I can't isolate one. I think Music Dance Experience was very special. And then the episode 8, I think, scene of Mark in the egg. Is it episode 8 in season? I think it's episode 8 in season 1, the egg party.
Yeah,
where they're
I think so.
And it's there's this shot in the mirror. I love that shot. Also, like there's this one shot of Adam just like reading the Rickon book on the ground in the closet that I just love. Looks like a random shot. There's so many good shots. Like we really got to mine stuff and do things that are so beautiful. So yeah, there's too many.
There's too many. And listen, once your episode releases, I think there's a lot from that people are going to be like, this is...
I can name you a bunch.
Oh, wait, you know what? I'm going to say one thing. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, but you guys won't get to see it until it's out. But the last shot of episode 10 is really beautiful.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Excited.
That gives us something to look forward to. Jessica, you are absolutely so lovely to speak to. Thank you so much for your time. We really hope we get to talk to you down the road. And truthfully, we cannot wait to see what you work on next as well, because you have just, from what we've seen on this show and from your episode directing and your time on this, it's amazing. So we're just, we're in your corner. We can't wait to see what you do.
Thank you. I had lots of fun talking to you guys.